By now, most of you are almost certainly aware of SCP-343. From the outset, he appears to be an unassuming old man, although the specific details of his appearance are subject to change based on whoever happens to be looking at him. Oh, and he's also God. We probably should have opened with that. Or at the very least, SCP-343 claims that he was responsible for creating, well, everything. Virtually the entire universe as we know and understand it, and even all the parts we can't even fathom are, according to him, the result of SCP-343's design. It's that assertion that earned him his nickname of God among the staff of the SCP Foundation. Well, that and the fact that he can seemingly do anything with as little as a thought. In fact, SCP-343 doesn't really even need to think all that hard to literally rework reality around him. So, you might be wondering, with virtually unlimited reality warping power that can enable him to do and be anywhere, all the knowledge in the entire universe and nothing but free time on his hands, what exactly does SCP-343 do all day? 6 a.m. SCP-343 starts most days awake before most of the Foundation staff at Site-17. Well, to say he's awake before is actually something of a misstatement. Technically, he can't be awake before anybody because he never really sleeps to begin with. He doesn't need to, not only because he doesn't require sleep to replenish energy like any mortal being does, but also due to the fact that SCP-343 doesn't exactly experience time in much the same way as a human being. After all, he did, supposedly, create the very force of time itself. Rather than living moment to moment like we do, experiencing the present, which then becomes our past, SCP-343 can exist at any and all points in time at will. For him, the past, present, and future are occurring simultaneously, although he seems to stay closely tethered to the present, but this is more out of choice. If he wanted to, we're sure SCP-343 could be at every moment in history, probably even in multiple different locations and even timelines at once. But that's just what happens when you're the apparent original architect of the universe and don't rely on ancient numerical systems and the rotation of the Earth in order to tell time. After being awake for all of what we perceive as nighttime, SCP-343 will go for a stroll nice and early. Oh, you thought we meant a stroll around the facility he's kept at? No. He'll take a stroll anywhere, literally phasing through solid matter and sometimes even just teleporting to whatever place takes his fancy. Sometimes he'll choose a place at random or pick an old favorite, just somewhere scenic to watch the sunrise. 8 a.m. Once the Foundation personnel have had enough time to both fully wake up and realize that SCP-343 has wandered out of his quarters, then an urgent search will undoubtedly be underway. Panicked Foundation security teams will start racing through the halls of Site-17, frantically searching for 343. He's not exactly trying to evade them. He's just naturally very resistant to being contained. It certainly makes keeping up with him a challenge, especially when he walks through walls and into the cells of other SCPs. When the security team does find him, it's inevitably because alarms are sounding to alert them that another containment chamber has been breached. Sometimes, in fact, more often than not, the staff stationed at SCP Site-17 will receive word from another Foundation installation that they've just seen SCP-343 stroll past security at a completely different location. Sometimes he'll pay a visit to SCP-049, the Plague Doctor, usually casually conversing with the anomalous physician and admiring his surgical skills. Handling medical tools is a tricky enough task, made even harder with a beak mask on your face. On other occasions, the Foundation has caught up with SCP-343 on his morning strolls in various other facilities, or with a number of different anomalies. Often, he'll slip through walls to spend time with SCP-529, better known as Josie the Half-Cat, an otherwise ordinary domesticated cat with anomalously intangible hindquarters. Sometimes 343 will also pay a morning visit to SCP-999, stating that he hopes the tickle monster will be, quote, ready one day. Other times, SCP-343 has been found by the Foundation sitting with Kane, with the pair usually being in mid-discussion over some deep philosophical pondering. The pair of them are rather friendly with each other, as if they've known each other for quite a while, with SCP-343 on one occasion even being noted as remarking to Kane,
"It's good to see how far you've come, my boy, especially after all that nasty business with your brother."
10 a.m. Wherever he ends up, once the Foundation is able to catch up with him, they politely ask him to return to his quarters back at Site-17. SCP-343 is always amicable and will make his way back post-haste. usually arriving before the security team who chased him down are able to make it back. Once he is back, it doesn't take SCP-343 long to get bored, however, so he decides to undertake a little bit of home decorating to pass the time. He's already conjured a fireplace and plenty of elegant furniture into his room, but on this particular day he feels like adding some color to brighten the place up. With little effort, the Mona Lisa, the Starry Night, the Persistence of Memory, Cafe Terrace at Night, and plenty more of the world's most famous paintings all simultaneously appear on the walls. Having summoned so many famous works to his room, SCP-343 has transformed his quarters into his own personal art gallery. He spends a while studying the paintings, looking at the skillfulness that went into the creation of each one, every brushstroke, every color choice. He almost seems like a proud father, looking at his child's art on display at a school open house. SCP-343 finds it oddly humbling to see how human artists have reflected just a fraction of the majestic universe he created, and all through such simple means. Paint on canvas, oil and water, brushes, and an easel. They seem so quaint to someone whose preferred medium is the very fabric of reality itself. And yet so many of the paintings he looks at seem to show the world through an even more beautiful lens. Imagination. SCP-343 admired it. Naturally, when multiple art galleries around the world reported that some of their most famous works had all been stolen at the exact same moment, it didn't take very long for that news to reach the Foundation. When they were eventually able to determine where the paintings were, a squad of guards politely told SCP-343 that they needed to be returned. "We've been looking everywhere for them," one explained. With as little as a blink, SCP-343 sent each of the paintings back to where they had come from. 12 p.m. At midday, there was a knock at SCP-343's door from notorious high-ranking Foundation researcher Dr. Jack Bright. Often, whenever he was working close enough to Site-17, Dr. Bright would pop in to visit SCP-343, usually bringing along the anomalous reality warper's preferred meal, hamburgers. The pair would casually chat to begin with, enjoying their food while a pair of security guards stood watch outside. However, inevitably, their conversation would always take the same turn. "You could remove it, couldn't you?" Dr. Bright asked, referring to SCP-963, the amulet he wore around his neck. "Or nullify it somehow?" The anomalous artifact was bound to Jack Bright, allowing his consciousness to be passed from one host body to the next, granting him functional immortality. Although over time, his extended lifespan has felt less and less like a gift, and more like a curse. SCP-343 had already been aware of this, thanks to them having the same conversation over a number of years. He'd known Dr. Bright for longer than most others working at the Foundation, and knew how badly the researcher wanted to die. But every time, SCP-343 would deny Jack's request.
"Jack, you know I could."
"But you won't." The Foundation doctor finished the sentence. "Why not? Will you explain that to me?"
"Because I know why you're asking."
"And why am I?" Jack probed further, calm, not raising his voice.
"It's not that you're tired of being alive for so long, although it may be how it feels," SCP-343 explained. "But you only feel that way because you're unfulfilled. You have this gift of immortality, and what do you use it for? You work, all you do is work. Just because you no longer have the short life everyone else has, doesn't mean you should stop living, Jack. You devote yourself to the Foundation, all its SCPs and horrors. Go out and do something for yourself every so often. Go to a party, meet people, or make something. Create a piece of art. You could even try making a movie. What's the worst that could happen? That's why I won't remove the amulet, Jack. Because I want you to have a chance to enjoy your extra time."
1:30 p.m. After finishing his lunch with Dr. Bright, SCP-343 takes some time out of his day for recreation. Completely unbeknownst to the Foundation, SCP-343 phases out of reality, as we understand it, and enters an extra-dimensional space, an astral plane, some might call it. While there, SCP-343 likes to enjoy a game of solitaire, conjuring a deck of playing cards from nothing and using them to play. Solitaire is a basic game, and once based on chance, how easy or difficult it is to complete rows of cards all in their matching set is all down to the random arrangement of the deck. That could be why SCP-343 likes playing a game like Solitaire. He has the ability, so he claims, to to create or unmake any part of the universe, to go anywhere or to do anything. If he wanted to, the cards could always be in the perfect order for him to finish the game in a few seconds. But where would be the fun? Most, if not all, of SCP-343's behavior seems to imply that despite his untold levels of reality warping power, he enjoys giving up control, or at least the illusion of not having to control everything around him. Playing with a completely random deck of cards feels very much in line with that aspect of his personality. If SCP-343 wanted to, he could always draw the right cards he needed for his solitaire games, but then he would be giving up that illusion of not having control. In much the same vein, he could very easily erase the universe's most dangerous anomalies, or even destroy the SCP Foundation with little effort if he wanted to. And yet, he opts instead to go through the motions, to let the deck of cards stay in random order. 4 p.m. By the time that afternoon is about to become evening, there's normally a bit of commotion at Site-17, all caused by SCP-343. Given how large the SCP Foundation is, and how expansive the organization's various facilities and operations are, inevitably someone who hasn't heard about SCP-343 eventually learns of his existence. When another group within the Foundation learns that Site-17 is accommodating a potentially dangerous SCP with the ability to warp reality on a completely unknown scale, it tends to cause a little panic. Requisitioning a mobile task force, a site director from another facility stormed into Site-17. He demanded to be shown to SCP-343's quarters, despite protests from the on-site staff, while reassured the director that there was nothing to worry about. They had all worked with SCP-343, all conversed with him, and knew him to be benevolent. But that just gave the site director more cause for concern. If SCP-343 could really do anything, surely he could have influenced how the personnel at Site-17 perceived him, via some cognito-hazardous means that meant they only thought he was harmless. Bursting into SCP-343's room with the MTF troopers, the site director demanded that the powerful reality warper explain himself. By this point, this happened enough times that SCP-343 just used the sudden intrusion as an excuse to leave the facility again for a while. He never even acknowledged that the agents from another part of the Foundation were trying to confine him. He merely got up and walked away. Even when the site director, who was a far more trigger-happy one this time around, commanded his men to open fire, SCP-343 was unfazed. The bullets from the MTF's weapons had no effect, melting into nothing practically the second they exited the barrel of their guns. Ignoring angered shouts to sit back down and stay put, SCP-343 casually walked off, disappearing through a wall and leaving the site director and MTF scrambling to track down where he'd gone to now. 7 p.m. The wider SCP Foundation was thrown into a state of panic, all while the reassurances of the Site-17 staff fell on deaf ears. It didn't matter how many times they said that SCP-343 would come back in his own time. The Foundation were already scouring the Earth looking for the reality-warping old man. Of course, few people think to look for you when you hide out in a specific, quiet old town in Belgium. SCP-343 had decided to take a sightseeing tour of Europe, while the SCP Foundation attempted to track him down. Every time he sensed that their agents were nearby, he vanished to another scenic location. He enjoyed being around people. Their lives were so short and fleeting compared to his. The novelty of spending time walking among his creations never seemed to wear thin. They spent their lives fretting over concerns that seemed so trivial to a being who could see the entire cosmic scope of everything that existed. And yet, it was these ordinary people who had built great cities and civilizations, who had developed culture and art beyond anything SCP-343 could have ever anticipated when he created them, if he actually did create them. His tour across Europe had brought SCP-343 to Bruges, the oldest and most well-preserved medieval town in Belgium. He stood at the top of an old clock tower, looking out at the view of the buildings and the canal that ran through Bruges. He was impressed at how long a place like this, made by man, had stood the test of time. An old man came to join SCP-343, having observed him in the tower and thinking he looked lonely. The pair of them got to chatting. The reality warper revealed who he was. Much to the man's surprise, He found himself believing the outlandish claim that this stranger had indeed made the whole universe. The old man proceeded to ask about the meaning of life and the universe, what everything meant and was for.
42.
SCP-343 answered, smirking, still staring out over Bruges. The old man looked confused.
Oh, that's just a joke from a book I quite enjoyed.
8 p.m. SCP-343's sightseeing break did not end in Belgium. In fact, it didn't even stay confined to Earth for very long. The SCP Foundation, the ones who weren't stationed at Site-17, were still on the lookout for the reality-warping old man, although they were still yet to turn their gaze upwards. Without any fanfare nor any explosive teleportation, SCP-343 just popped into existence, standing on the surface of the moon. He basked in the Earthlight for a while, looking at the view of the entire world. From here, it seems so much smaller, still colossal in size compared to SCP-343 himself, but it was the distance. Everything seemed so far away, so microscopic that for a mortal, it might be hard to comprehend. But for SCP-343, he could see it clearly, a world teeming with life. He turned his gaze to the infinite expanse of space, the whole universe beyond, stars burning against an inky blackness. As he stood looking up at the solar system, like someone admiring their handiwork, he spotted something that surprised him. A few million kilometers from the sun was an old Volkswagen microbus. This was SCP-1958, a vehicle that had been heavily modified by a group of friends so that they could leave Earth and go travel the cosmos together. They had initially been successful and had planned to visit Alpha Centauri, a star system in the constellation of Centaurus. Unfortunately, a miscalculation meant it would take millions of years to reach their destination. Ultimately, the entire group on board SCP-1958 had perished, lost in space. While he was saddened to know of their deaths, thanks to his omniscience, SCP-343 could hardly blame the group of young friends for wanting to travel to the stars. He might not have chosen to do so in an old microbus, but he could understand why they would go to such lengths to fly away from Earth. It truly was beautiful up here in space, SCP-343 thought. 10 p.m. Having decided he'd been gone for long enough, SCP-343 thought it was about time that he should be making his way back to Site-17. He'd given the SCP Foundation enough of a runaround for one day. SCP-343 would finally settle back into the comfort of his cell, exactly where he wanted to be. Want an anomaly of your own? Check out scpswag.com for high-quality SCP merch. Now go check out What If SCP-343 Wore SCP-035 and SCP-343 God vs. Bill Cipher from Gravity Falls for more explorations into everyone's favorite anomalous deity.